and we were, Father was pensioned in December the 31st, 1975. We took a couple of years to decide where we wanted to settle, but most of you that were here, and you were only about 6 or 7 years old, and I hadn't had much of a chance to, the others had grown up and gone, and some of them were down in California. We went down there a couple of times, but didn't see them very often. So you were kind of the last of the small ones that I would be seeing, because I was getting on, and I was turned 70. And so, and of course, Betty was my favorite granddaughter. And because I didn't have a chance to get to know the other ones away down in California, so we decided that most of them were here. So, and this being my hometown, my two brothers were still here, married with families, because they had Jimmy and Louis, or whatever her name is, and they were married. They got about 150 acres of chicken. Yes.
In Victoria?
Yes. And so we came to Vancouver, and we moved in here. The day that we arrived here, Peggy, our daughter, had the place, had been to see it, and we loved it. Of course, it was only a year old then. We moved in there, and right by the gorge waterfront, and I've been here 16 years on the 23rd of next month.
This was the area where the Japanese...
Yes, the Japanese gardens were down where the Gorge Park is, right across from Fairway there, right there. Oh, it was just beautiful. Just beautiful. Of course, the flowers are still beautiful. The gardens all along the gorge and everything. But, oh, it was lovely. The water was pure blue and warm.
Did you swim in there? You used to swim in there?
Oh, yes. And there's great big white swans in pairs. They're still there. The white swans are still there. They go up together up one side. They have a name. I forget what it is. Your grandmother knows. And, oh yes, that was beautiful. Even when we moved here 15 years ago, there was 146 condominiums there, 86 here since we lived here. Oh, goodness, a lot of changes. Yes, we could see the whole of the waterfront. Now we can see 1 foot if you get between the fruit trees. Yes, and I'm still here. And he was the wonderful grandfather and a wonderful father and a good husband. And he worked in the same job for 40 years. And they put a big write-up in the paper about him. I can show you it in the album. That when he left the Hydro, they would certainly miss him. And he like going to Reno playing the horses. But I don't know. His mother died at birth.
Right.
His father fought in the war, right through the war. Second World War would have been First World War. Mm-hmm. He went through the war, and then he became a sign writer for all the trains companies in Winnipeg. He had a steady job for about 20 or 30 years, painting, doing all the writing on the trains and all the stop things and everything like that. That's all he did was paint. Well, his father met a girl in England when he was coming home from the war, and he came back here. His grandmother took him because his mother died when he was 2 days old, and his grandma brought him up, and and then when his father came home from the war a year later, he sent for the girl, and she came out here, and they got married, and they had 4 children. And then Grandpa went to live with them. But he was 12 years old by that time. Yeah.
What's his name?
Yes, and the 4 children they had. Oh, yes, and my mother, another time, car honked, and it was my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and the 4 children, and a dog. And they lived with us for 3 years. And one of the girls, Margaret, married an Australian Air Force boy and stayed long enough. He went back to war. She met him, and they got married. And he was only home 3 weeks, and they had a baby born at our house named Stephen. And 20 years later, we got a big, fancy invitation, and it was to his wedding because he'd been born at our house. So who says I didn't have a house full? From the time he was 11 till the time he was 17. And then he went and took a course, a business course, and then he came to the coast. Yeah, well, he came with his parents came here for the summers, so he knew. And he liked it so well, after he'd finished his course, he came here, and after the oldest girl had married the Australian, and he was killed. Yeah, in the war. But they had the baby boy, Stephen, and we never heard from him for about 10 years, and then this envelope came, an invitation for us to go to his wedding. Yes.